But I have no idea. I have no relationship. I have no understanding of these people that I start comparing myself to on the internet. Comparison, thief of joy. So what do we have to do to overcome that? Right? It comes back to some of these same things. And as we're taking on these goals, as we're pressing through, as we're making decisions, focus on your own lane, focus on your own pace and your own race.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Grit Meets Growth podcast, where we bring you inspiration and insights focused on getting uncomfortable, making things happen, and creating a magnetic life. If you enjoy the messages you're hearing here, please leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening on, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes of the podcast. With that, let's get after it. One of the things as we were prepping for this conversation, we're having the talk offline, was this concept of decision making and being decisive in your decision making. And I think that is a huge thing. I've had, like, I'm going through an example of it right now with some hiring that we're doing, and it's easy to get wrapped around the axle when it comes to decision making and trying to understand every piece of the decision you got to make, and overanalyzing and getting paralyzed by all the stuff. Sometimes you just have to be decisive and go. It doesn't mean making dumb decisions. You have to be smart. You have to weigh things. You have to understand the decision you're making and ask good questions. But decision making, often we don't make decisions because we get stuck on all the details. So I go from there. What do you think of that?
Well, yeah, I think there's that statement has a lot in it, right? But I think there's a couple of places. Number one, we have more information at our fingertips than we've ever had in history. And we as humans don't do really good when we have a lot of choices. Right? So to your point, people get into this whole analysis paralysis of things. Now, if I break apart that analysis paralysis, what is that a driver of? That's a driver of people not wanting to make the wrong choice. Now, the reality is this: there isn't any wrong choice ever. As long as whatever choice or decision that we make, we put 100% of the effort behind that and into that decision, it can't ever be the wrong decision. Right? We get in this whole analysis paralysis, data overload to try to figure out which is the right decision. When the reality is both of them are good, just pick one and run with it. It's taken me a long time to get to that point, right? In my own life, there's been plenty of opportunities, in my life where you get into the paralysis. But there's also been those moments of just a snap decision, make a decision and go. And quite frankly, those are the most enjoyable. Why? Because in your mind, you already know. Right? It goes back to what Eric Harkins says in his book, right? If you're not sure, you're sure. That can be applied to anything. Hiring, firing decisions, hanging out with a certain individual, right? Whatever it happens to be, that applies to almost everything that we do. And since reading his book, it has rings in my head consistently, and starting and getting to know Eric. The conversations we've had, it's really helped me to streamline that process in my own life to go, yeah, just make a decision and go. Because you already know. Like sometimes you just have to go based on what your body is telling you. Your mind's fighting against it. Your body's going, let's go this direction. Your body's going, or your mind's going, no, I want to go right instead of left. You're like, no, the body's going, we're going left. Right. So this fight happens in our own head and body. And if you're unsure, you're sure.
Well, but I'm going to go back to what you talked about, data overload. Like we have access to more data and more information today than we've ever had. And we would look to that like it's some kind of a massive benefit. There's a lot of value in it. And I would say there probably is, but there are also times where you're like, I just want to check one more spot. And so we've got voices coming in from people around us in our circle. Some of them are people who care about us and want to. This is something that came up the other day. You got people in your circle who want to impress their own values and beliefs and how they show up onto you. So for example, um, I am wired in such a way where I want to go all the time. Like I've got a high capacity for doing a lot of stuff and being very busy. I enjoy it. There are people in my circle who don't, and they'll look at that and go, you need to slow down. You just need to slow down. And they're saying that out of a place of care, but also because they're not wired in the same way I am. So they're trying to impress their wiring on me. And frankly, their wiring doesn't fit me because if I slow down too much, I get really bored and I'm not happy. So there's data that we're getting from the outside. That's that kind of data. Then we're trying to make decisions and we're including data that we're finding on the internet. Then we're including data that we got off of social media. We start to compare ourselves, and we can go down this path a little bit too. We go down that comparison side. Now we've got that data coming in and we're stuck. All this data is coming in. We don't know how to parse it all out or filter it. We're like, I can't do anything. I don't know what to do. And I'm just stuck.
Well, right. And what was our data sources in the past, right? We had our community, we had our, our faith community, we had our friends in our close circle, we had our neighborhood, right? Though that was where we got our information, right? The local newspaper. Oh, I might get something from, the national, little bits and clips from the national news back in the day, right? So we had less information to overload those decision points on. Now, we fast forward to where we're at today, right? Just as you said, we've got sources abound, but we also have this thing called social media. And I'm going to jump right into it and say social media is the thief of joy. Because if comparison, right, as the statement says, if comparison is the thief of joy, then social media is the thief of joy. It has everybody rushing their goals, right? We're comparing ourselves to people we have no understanding, no relationship with, other than what they want to show us on social media. Right? When I looked around and I wanted to compare myself to somebody, back in the day in my neighborhood, all I had to do was look at them. And I knew what they did on a day-to-day basis. But I have no idea. I have no relationship. I have no understanding of these people that I start comparing myself to on the internet. Comparison, thief of joy. So what do we have to do to overcome that, right? It comes back to some of these same things. And as we're taking on these goals, as we're pressing through, as we're making decisions, focus on your own lane, focus on your own pace and your own race. Help others along the way, right? I don't think that is putting blinders on and not helping people. It's not what, as I think about that statement, I go, that's not really what I'm trying to say. But when it comes to our goals, like we have to run those at our own pace. We have to right? There's going to be times where those hurdles are going to be tough to overcome, and I have to work through them. And I can only do that at my own pace.
That concept of your own lane, your own race, your own pace, I think is really important because going back to the comparison piece, how many times do you find yourself running somebody else's race? You're running in somebody else's lane, running their race at their pace, not your own. And I've caught myself in life doing that. And I've caught myself now realizing I want to run my own goals. And I want to work on my own goals at my own pace, on my own way. And like to your point, obviously ask for help from people, but don't just accept what other people say are your goals. Make them your own and do it your own way.
What was the trigger point for you to what flipped that switch for you?
I think it was a maturity thing. I think I looked around and I was more mature age-wise, more experienced bringing that to the table. I wish I had figured this out when I was like 20. The advantage that I would have had at 20 if I had known this would have been massive. But I think you get a little older and you start to look around and you start to see people who are running races that are not their own. And I can think of like 3 people right now who are really worried about what other people think. And they are running races that are not their own. And they are not getting the results they want because they're so focused on the results other people want.
Well, and that's the other piece, right? You just said, I think, what is probably the number one challenge that we face in this arena. And you're talking about, the fact that we're running somebody else's race because we're focused on the goals that somebody else has set for us, or that we look to social media and see somebody achieving these things and you go, I want to achieve that same goal, instead of really making it your own, right? And you mentioned about folks that are out there and really struggling with a lot of this. And the reality is, part of that struggle is because they're not embracing the process. They're only focused on the goal, right? And in the process, in the way of achieving that goal, is really where the magic happens. That's where the money is, right? Things are supposed to be hard. We're supposed to have days where we have moments of doubt. We're supposed to have days where we don't want to do it. But the value in the process is continuing to push through that, not letting that self-doubt get to you. I have it. I had it this morning. Thinking about our coaching group and getting that thing off the ground. And asking myself, what in the heck am I doing? Why is this taking so long? Is this really the direction? Right? I mean, I started having these thoughts and I'm going, no, of course it's the right direction. I have a lot of value and a lot to bring to that conversation. I just have to embrace the process to get it there, right? It's a good testament of things don't ever happen on the timeline that we want them to. Right? We wanted to launch back in January, and here we are in March, and we're on the cusp, but we've put in a lot of work in the last 6-8 weeks to get us to this point. So yeah, those moments of self-doubt happen, right? There's days that we want to do it. How many days have you not wanted to go to the gym? Right? That's always an easy one, right? Because I'm a morning gym person, want to sleep in. If you're an afternoon gym person, you get done with your day and you're like, it's been a hard day. I just want to go home, right? So that's an easy one to kind of say, right? The gym. But if we embrace the process and we know that it's about the consistency, like, okay, I miss one day. Big deal. Doesn't impact me because I've embraced the process. I'm going on a consistent basis. One day isn't going to be an issue. Now, if I let it go more than 3 days, we got a problem. Somebody needs an ass whooping. So my point being, none of this stuff is easy. It's supposed to be hard. Embrace the process. Make that process your own. Make those goals your own and run your race, man.
I'm gonna connect some dots here for a second. One of the things that stuck out as you were talking about that was this. You're talking about the process. Embrace the process. The process is going to be hard. It's going to come with some uncomfortable stuff. Here's the deciding factor when you encounter the hard things and those moments where you want to quit, or those moments where the self-sabotage comes in, or where you question, am I doing the right thing? Because things get hard. So I'm like, how you start to lock up, right? If it's your own goal and your own why, now you have a reason to keep going. if you all your stuff is pinned to somebody else's goal and you're not completely bought into it because you don't own it, you will quit. That's the difference. And I've done it. Like I've had goals that I quit. And when I realized that I quit the goal, I realized do a little introspection and awareness. It wasn't my goal. Somebody else's goal for me. It got hard. I quit. My own goals, I will stick that out till I'm done.
Right.
Period.
Right. And you wonder why we talk about goals all the time on this podcast, right? Because they're important. That is the foundation. Those are the foundation of what we're doing, right? That is the process. Defining the goal, setting the process to get it, that's part of the effort that we have to go through. And just as you said, John, things are going to get tough. And if we don't own it, if it's not ours, yeah, it's easy to put it aside. I was just having that conversation the other day, again, about the gym, right? And going, well, why are you here? Well, because I'm here with my buddies, right? So what's your goal? What's your goal? I have my goal and I'm working towards it. What's your goal? Are you here for you or are you here for your friend? Right? As a training partner, as a workout partner. You have to want to be there for more than that. Or what you think is your goal isn't ever going to happen. Right? If your goal is to lose weight, then make that the goal and build the process to set you up to do that. Just going to the gym an hour a day, 5 days a week isn't going to get you to lose weight, right? There's a lot more that goes into it than that.
I think the key to this, though, any one of these goals is asking the question, how bad do you want it? And like like even put it on a scale of 1 to 10. Take your goal, whatever goal you've got that you've got on a pedestal right now, put it on a scale of 1 to 10. How bad do you want it? Like, do you want it at a 10 where you're all in and you're going to do whatever it takes? Like Burning Desire, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich kind of stuff? Or do you want it at like a 5 where I kind of want it, but if the work's too hard or it gets too uncomfortable or I don't feel like it, I'm out. Like, how bad do you want it is a big question. Because I think people throw goals around pretty loosely, a little bit laissez-faire, like, yeah, I got a goal. Okay. What are you doing to achieve it? Like, do you want it bad enough to do the work, or do you just like the idea of having a goal? I think there's something to that as well.
Well, there's a lot of conversation. You're training for a run coming up, right? For a marathon. And there's a lot of conversation about that, right? Out there in the world, signing up for a marathon. That's my goal. I'm going to run a marathon. You don't just wake up on the day of the marathon and go run a marathon, no matter who you are, right? There's training, there's effort, there's mindset training. There's things that go into that process. How long is that process? Why don't you kind of take us through that a little bit?
So I'm getting ready, like right now I'm getting ready for a half. And the interesting thing about it is, so I've run a marathon before. I've done this. I kind of know based on past experience, the amount of work it takes. And so it's the consistency. Like running once a week is not going to get you prepped and trained to run a half. You're going to have to be consistent multiple days a week. You're going to have a program and you're going to have to follow it. You're going to have to follow the program on days when it's crappy out. It's cold, it's hot, it's rainy. Like I go back to when we were training for grandma's marathon. We did a 16-mile run one day in the pouring rain. And that was the day that we were scheduled to do it. And if we didn't do it that way, we didn't have time in the schedule the next day to do it. So you just like hunkered down and did it. So it's the consistency thing for sure. And it's knowing why you want it. Like I want to run the marathon or the half for this one because I want to find out what I'm capable of. And I want to find out what I'm really capable of. Like the last one I did was 8 years ago. Do I still have it in the tank to do it? The only way to find out if I've still got it in the tank is to go for it. But I want to give myself the best chance for success, not just show up day of and be like, can I grind through it? And here's the deal. There are some goals you can just grind through. Like I could not I to go back to what you said, I could not train for this, show up day of. Can I go 13 miles in one day? Yeah. It's going to be really ugly. I'm not going to give my best performance. It's not like I'm not going to show up at my best. Like, so that's the other thing too. Like, you can half-ass your goal and you can get to the end and maybe you come close to achieving it, but you're not going to achieve it at the level you could have. You're always going to wonder, what did I leave on the table?
Right.
So,
And that training, I mean, you're making sacrifices, you're challenging yourself, you're pushing yourself to the limits on those days, right? You do a 6 mile run today, and tomorrow you go out and do another 3 miles, or the next day or whatever, right? You're sore as hell. Everything hurts. But that's the price that you pay to separate yourself from everyone else, right? If and you said this, right? If your goal is to show up on race day and deliver the best version of you in that marathon, then you've got to put the work in, right? And go through the training and go through the process and do the consistency of it so that you can separate not only from other people, but more importantly, from yourself, from the old version of you. Right? That sacrifice that you're putting in, that work that you're putting in is separating you from yourself yesterday and from yourself tomorrow, right? By the time you run that marathon, you've created a new you.
we talked about this morning too. We both were talking a little bit about being sore, like coming off of workouts, sore. I'm going to tell you right now, that's sore. Like when my legs are sore, my shoulders are a little sore from running. My body, I can feel it in my body that I've gone out and I've run 6 miles, 7 miles, whatever it is. That pain, a little bit of sore, uncomfortable for sure. But I'm going to tell you, I feel really good on the inside because I'm remembering what I went out and did yesterday. I remember the work I put in and I'm proud of myself. Like I'll give myself a pat on the back. I'm proud of myself because I did something that a lot of other people won't. And I did something for me that I know is making me better.
And the reality is you've got to do that. I get to do it, right? That's what when I'm sore and I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh, I'm sore, but I get to feel sore today. There's a lot of people that don't even have that opportunity, whether they've made the decision themselves or they're incapable, right? I get to do that. I get to go test my body. I get to go push it to its limits. I get to do those things to achieve the goals that I'm chasing.
Well, and not you, I'm gonna hover in this spot for a second. So I've got a buddy who is, we're going back to Nepal next October. And one of the buddies that I'm going back to Nepal with, was out hiking with his wife yesterday. He's got a pack on, he's doing the hike, and he brought up that he's sore, which was especially, like it struck a nerve living in Minnesota over the last couple of weeks because his response was, I get to feel sore. And there are 3 men in Minnesota this week that don't get to feel sore anymore. 2 police officers and an EMT who have lost the ability to feel sore. We don't get the right to take that for granted. You woke up this morning. If you're listening to this, you woke up this morning. You got to feel sore. You got to do the work. You got to do the exercise. There's a responsibility that comes with that to be thankful for it. Have some gratitude over the fact that your legs hurt. Not everybody gets that. And I think that was a really important message for me yesterday. Like when he said, I get to, and not everybody does. That hit home in a big way yesterday. So.
Yeah. And, right, it all comes down to finding your why, right? You have to really figure out why you're doing the things that you're doing, right? And that will help create goals that actually are meaningful to you. And once you create those goals, Create the process. Embrace that process. Enjoy that process. Have the mindset of, I get to do this today. Attitude when you get up. And you'll get there. You'll get there. But again, focus on your own lane. Focus on what you're doing. Focus on your pace. Not somebody else's pace, not what somebody else did. Make it your pace.
I love having this conversation right now. We're in March, the beginning of March right now. We're coming off of that initial surge of like the January goals into February. A lot of those died on the vine. This is an opportunity 3 months into the year, now that the January goal setting has kind of gone through its course, to keep goal setting top of mind and remind everybody listening to this that it's not a January thing. You got a whole year in front of you to do a lot of really amazing things. But you're going to have to do some work. You're going to have to make it your own. You're going to have to cut through some uncomfortable to get there.
Yep. And you're going to have to do it for a long time. We got to embrace that, right? It's consistency over a long period of time that gets you to the results. We all want everything yesterday, right? We live in an instantaneous society. When it comes to your goals, they're not instant. And it's supposed to be tough. And it's supposed to be difficult. And you're supposed to get bruised and battered and sore. Those are all signs that you're alive, man. You're living. Embrace them.
I love these conversations, man. This is good.
So, you know what you got to do? Make it a great day and get after it.
Another good one, dude. Thank you.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Later. That wraps it up for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being part of the Grit Meets Growth tribe. And thanks for growing along with us and being part of this journey together. If you know someone who needs to hear the conversation we had today, please share it. If you got something out of this conversation, please leave us a review. And finally, if you want to make sure you don't miss future episodes, just remember to subscribe. We're thankful for each and every one of you. And as my co-host and good friend Chris Cathers always says, make it a great day.